friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Elenbaas, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Hey everyone, welcome in. I am so excited to share with you today's content. It builds on the work of my last episode, which will be published as part of my Herbalism and Ancient Symbols playlist. So if you missed last week's episode on the goddess from old Europe to now, focusing on the egg as a symbol of creative impetus, and I linked in just a lot of history about the goddess and the feminist movement. So if you haven't listened to that episode, just go right back to my playlist and you can find it there. I'll also include a link to that first episode down below. Today we're going to be looking at the symbol of water and how water shows up in the ancient Neolithic times in the goddess figurines. I also made a really exciting discovery of how these symbols are also present in the modern world. So stay tuned to the end to hear more about how to look for these symbols in the world that we're living in today. Before we go into all of this, I wanted to just take a moment, if you are new to my channel, to welcome you in and to invite you to subscribe, to stay in contact with me, and to help others find my work. I also wanted to take a moment to invite you to join my upcoming herbal apprenticeship course, which starts on April 24th. And if you're listening to this after, no problem, you can still join. Let's share my screen and we will go over to the Sky House website where you can join me for a little look into how to enroll into our upcoming course. So here is the Sky House website. And if we click on Herbal Foundations Apprenticeship here, let's make this a full screen so that you can see everything. Here we are on the Herbal Foundations Apprenticeship website. If you scroll down, you can learn more about this upcoming course, the highlights, the dates, all of the herbs that we'll be working with, everything from nettles and oat straw, damiana, marshmallow, and all of these other plant allies. We will share with you ways of working with herbal medicine from the vitalist tradition in your own body and how to work with family and friends. And then we'll be meeting once a month live on these dates. So you and I and our other herb friends will hang out for about 2 hours every month. And then you'll also get a chance to meet with Janelle, who is our course assistant, who will lead tea time study sessions once a month. So you basically get 2 meetings per month to talk about the power and medicine of plants. And if you want to enroll, you can click here to sign up. We can offer a single payment. Click here for monthly payment options. And if this is out of your budget, we do offer need-based pricing. So click here to apply for tuition assistance and learn about the additional ways you can take this course if you need a little bit of financial help. So that is that. I hope to see some of you in the Herbal Foundations course starting soon. All right, I cannot wait to share with you what I have been learning about. And so for those of you who might be newer to my channel, I've been really deeply diving into the ancient symbols of the goddess and specifically throughout the old Europe region. And I want to share, I actually made a little slideshow for you all to give you some images because as I'm going through today's topic, I wanted to give you things to look at, like some of the images of these Neolithic goddess figurines. So you can see how the symbols of water, which is our topic and symbol of exploration today, how these actually show up in these different figurines. So I will go over to my screen share now and show you a map. So I wanted to start with showing you a map of what the old Europe region is. And this was defined by Maria Gimbutas, who has been an incredible source of inspiration for me as I've been diving into the studies of the ancient goddess culture. So she actually coined the name Old Europe for this whole region here in black, which is was composed of Italy and Turkey, ancient Greece, and this whole area in the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. We can, a lot of excavation work has been done in these regions showing that they were for many, many thousands of years, like we're thinking around 8,000 years, were matriarchal. That means that they were led by the image of the female goddess, and they were an egalitarian society, which meant that men and women lived and worked as equals. Now, even though it was matriarchal, men were still equally part and involved in the goddess culture. And one thing that I learned today as I'm diving into this course on the work of the goddess that was discovered by Maria Gimbutas and a number of other anthropologists and what do they call them now? Or archaeomythologists is kind of the new coined word. But these archaeomythologists also discovered that while there was an organized, I don't even want to say a hierarchy, but while the civilization of the Neolithic time, we're talking about 10,000 BCE to about 2000 BCE. So during this time in this part of the world, there weren't specific jobs or roles that men and women had differently. So even though there seemed to be an organization around the goddess as the supreme figurehead, and usually it seemed a woman who was sort of in a more leadership role, that both men and women hunted, both men and women gathered. There were women who worked on boats and navigated the seas. There were, women who were involved in smithing and working with fire and metalwork. And just as there were men who were involved in songwriting and farming and tending the crops and tending these fires, men and women did not have assigned roles in terms of what they did. And there's this whole culture that I might do an episode on this, the Amazons, which were a group of warrior-based women, which was around the end of the Neolithic area when the matriarchal culture started to come under siege by the Kyrgyz peoples that were coming in from the east and bringing their more patriarchal culture, that there was this group of women that became really strong warriors and fought. And so there's a whole part of history on the Amazonian women that I'd love to dive into as well. But I just want to say that for about 8,000 years, both men and women worked together in various different fields. And, we often think about, well, if it's matriarchal, the women took care of the children and they cooked and they cleaned and the men were out hunting and gathering. Actually, that's not true. The men and women both hunted. The men and women both sailed the seas. They both did the work equally, but it was more about what the individual woman felt called to do, right? And what her natural innate skills were. And we see that, in the modern world, which is a great gift. We see women who are taking on what were considered to be more male dominant roles. But during this Neolithic period of great peace and abundance and flourishing, in this egalitarian culture, we see that these roles were equally, and it was, again, really based on the unique skills of the individual person, not based on gender roles. I wanted to bring this map to you and share this with you just to give you another little insight into what this period of time looked like on this planet. And, to me, I love talking about this because it gives me hope for the future. It gives me hope for what our culture can look like, what we are capable of, and how we're capable of living in a more peaceful, egalitarian way. What I also wanted to share with you in today's episode is the image of water and the idea of the water goddess. And Maria Gimbutas, in her work, she talks about symbols of water, and in particular, what does she call it? She calls it the Mistress of Waters. the Mistress of Waters. And I'm going to share some symbolism with you from Maria Gimbutas' work in this slide presentation. So let's hop back over here. And in the second slide, these are all of the symbols that Maria Gimbutas put together that she found on a lot of ancient figurines that represented the goddess, and in particular, the Mistress of the Waters and the bird goddess. So let me just go forward a little bit. So this is the language of the bird goddess. And so she found, hundreds and hundreds of these figurines, which had all of these different symbols that related to the female anatomy, to the goddess, and to this idea of their reverence of water. So if we go back a few slides here, I want to bring your attention to the first symbol that we see in a lot of this iconography of the V. So I want to bring your attention here to this V shape. And we see a V with a line. We see the inverted V. We see the double V as a chevron symbol and an inverted double V here. But when we look at the actual goddess figurines, as she discovered through a lot of her archaeological work throughout this Old Europe era, is that often the V is symbolized right at near the vulva. So in a very natural way that we see in the female form as it lives and breathes today, this V shape. So just notice in all of these different sculptures, this V shape right at the female arc of the hips and the vulva. We also see it down here. Here's the symbol of the V, where the hips come down and meet as a V, right? So you can just see the symbol of a V found just about everywhere on the goddess figurine. In this beautiful symbol of another image of the goddess, here is that triangle shape right at the vulva. And we see these different symbols of water. And so what she has done is shown that anytime we see a V, anytime we see triangles, anytime we see this M shape, you can see this M shape on the back, that these are all symbols of water and the movement of water and symbols of fertility as related to the goddess. And so there are, whenever we look at the goddess figure, Maria always said, look at what is emphasized and what is de-emphasized, and that will tell you what this figure was representing. So in this particular image, we see, really the hips are being emphasized. The breasts are not being emphasized. They're quite small here. So in this particular image, we see very wide hips. We see these V and then these meandering water images around the hips. So we could say here that this particular goddess, there was, likely she was showing a symbol of abundance and fertility and width of water in her hips and from that birthing place. And not so much maybe the breasts as being nourishment, but more of the actual birthing. And we also see here on her hips in the back, we see these triangle diamond shaped symbols as well. And here we see the S shape and see her hair coming down the back in like long, long strands. So this is quite beautiful. And we see this pattern showing up in other ancient carvings as well. So here we see, here's another V shape. And then we have these lines that wrap around the hips, lines that wrap around the thighs. Again, we don't see the breasts as clearly shown here, but we see the buttocks. We see this beautiful spiral, this double spiral shape in the buttocks on the back of this figurine. Again, showing movement and showing this reverence for what is life bringing through the portal of the hips and of the vulva. We also see in more images as we go throughout time, we see the chevrons, we see these symbols. Let me just go to the next one here of the bird goddess. And this is a symbol motif that shows up a lot in these ancient cultures, is a bird-shaped head, often with a beak, and with arms that are upstretched or outstretched in an upward movement. So here we see this sort of bird-shaped face. If I go to another image, let's go forward here. Here is another image of the bird goddess with these wing arms. Here the breasts are emphasized, and see that bird-like beak being emphasized. And here's another bird goddess statue where we see this beak and we see the arms, the hands placed over the belly, showing pregnancy or fullness of the body and of the female goddess form, bringing life, and the water bearer, the idea of the bird goddess was such a powerful motif in this time. Here's another image of the bird goddess. Here we see the meandering signs here of the way that water flows through the land. And we see that V shape of the neck. And the V shape on the neck is also another symbol of the goddess. So if we go back here to this symbol, we see all of these chevrons and meandering signs of water. And we also see this, you can see here's the V shape all along her legs and the meanderings of water. And then look at the side of the altar. Here we have that V-shaped symbol of the goddess. And one of the things Maria Gimbutas said again and again is just look for the V. And when you see the V, you know that they were, in the carving of the V was the meditation on the goddess. Okay. And here in the bird symbol, look at the V shape around her neck. We can see this V shape right around the neck, and then this upward V shape around the belly, and then the crisscrossing of this goddess figurine, right? This crisscrossing across the breasts. So we can see this great connection to these lines. And one of the things I was curious about is like, well, why was this? Why was the symbol of the bird goddess and of the V so important to the people of this time? And Maria said in her book, The Language of the Goddess, she said that they had century-long droughts and lack of water. And this resulted in the creation of symbolic images to bring forth water during these dry spells. And this was particularly true in the drier regions of the Balkans and Greece, where they would have long periods of drought. And so as part of her sort of mythological exploration, is she said it was probably likely that people during this time would carve these figurines of the goddess and they would make these vases of the goddess as a call to the goddess of water and the water bearer to bring rains, to bring the fertile medicine of the water into the life of these drier regions. And so this was this idea of the mistress of the waters and these streams and these mythical creatures as being the source of water, and water as being the source of life. We know that if we don't have water, the agricultural fields, the farmlands dry up. A lot of the medicines that were gathered along the streams would dry up and not be available either. There's another image here I want to share with you from this era that's also connected to the symbol from the symbol of water, this sign here from the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. And so this is the symbol of water. And this also, we see this ancient symbol of water also being used here. Do you see that M shape? And we also see it here in the M shapes in the body. And we see the M shape here. And it's interesting because the M shape was something that in ancient Greece, the letter M was called mu and was also it was the sound of water, of ma or mu in ancient Egypt, and ma or the source, which is like mother, and matter, ma is the source of all things. And so we see that symbol in the symbol of M. I just think that's so beautiful. And look at this ancient bird vase. This is actually a very large piece that is from that same Neolithic area. They dated this one to be around 5500 BCE. And here we can see the symbol of the V for the goddess. And these double V's, also considered the chevron, we see here, which is really interesting. One of the things that Maria talks about is how they would form these vessels to call for the bird goddess to bring the rains. And look it down from her eyes are raining. And she called these torrents. They do also look like sideways M's from the Egyptian period, also related to water. And so this would be a call. She said that this vase, the creation of this vase as a holder of water, a vase to hold large amounts of water, was a plea to the bird goddess. And here's the bird goddess with her nose to please bring the torrents of rain. Please, bird goddess, cry on us, bring us and fill us with your waters. Here is the symbol of the infinity, or the spiral. We are here to listen to the infinite callings of you. We will listen to your pleas. We are here listening for you. And here is the symbol of the cross, related to the 4 cycles, or the 4 seasons, to birth, life, death, and regeneration. And a lot of times artwork was created in the spirit of calling the goddess in. And look at these big eyes, just dripping and flooding with waters. And, I think that there's something really powerful there, especially for us right now, as we live in a time of droughts and really strange weather patterns. And so when we think about why now, why are the symbols of the goddess important to us now? I was thinking of 2 things. One, I was thinking about droughts and these raging fires, and how a lot of people, we can, I think, use these symbols and use our art and use our voice to call for mercy from the rains, to heal the scorched earth. I think that is something we have forgotten, that we actually have the power to call rain. We really do. And I know that might sound crazy, but I don't think it is. The other is because it's an interesting thing to note that most humans are chronically dehydrated. And I remember coming across this in my research. Like 3/4 of Americans are chronically dehydrated. And we can see that in our skin. And one way I look for it in myself is if I start to get wrinkles, or like raisoning or pruning in my fingers. Today I'm doing pretty well. I've got a little bit of pruning here, but I've been, I've been drinking water a lot. But most Americans, a lot of our chronic health issues stem from chronic dehydration. And chronic dehydration can lead to chronic inflammation and toxicity in our bodies. And if we don't have enough water flowing through us, things get bogged up. We get dried out. We get emotionally dried out. We get psychically and mentally dried out. And one of the things that chronic dehydration can do is it can have an effect on our mental functioning and on our memory and our cognition. It can also have an effect on our emotional receptivity and our ability to be empathetic and our ability to be resilient against stress. So a lot of people talk about chronic stress, chronic stress. Yeah, if we are dehydrated, our whole neurological and electrical systems become less able to recover from stressors in the environment. And those stressors are also chemical stressors from toxins in the environment. So, when I was thinking about the importance of the water goddess in the modern world, we need clean water. And this brings me into the idea of water protection and taking care of our waterways here on this earth. And so the little things we can do to keep pollutants out of the water by using products that are not toxic to our waterways, by taking in medicines that are from the earth that naturally biodegrade and don't add more to the, to the load that our waterways are currently carrying, getting outside, picking up trash from the waterways, organizing Earth Day, trash collecting, gatherings with your local community groups. There's so many things we can do to protect the waters. And so if we think about the goddess and the water as being connected, hopefully we can start to get creative with how we engage in the world and with our bodies. And as a mother, for me, with my children's bodies, like, are my children hydrated? Are my children getting enough clean, healthy water? And, it seems so simple, but I think that that's symbolically connected to so many problems that we face as a culture. So, can we nourish and hydrate ourselves and our babies so that we are full and luscious and able to hold information, able to hold emotional receptivity and emotional intelligence in a way that is going to foster care and peace and serenity in the world we are living in? I think we can do that. So I wanted to show you how these symbols show up also in our daily life. And I thought this was really interesting. So let me go back to my screen share. So these are ways that the symbols show up in the world we live in. I thought this was interesting, that the modern yield sign. So I'm going to start doing this, and I invite you to do this too, is every time you see that upside down V, the symbol of the goddess, as a yield sign, it's not only a moment for you to yield to incoming traffic, but gosh, what a great opportunity to also just take a deep breath and to yield to, how am I feeling? Let me just do a little yin goddess check-in. How am I doing? Am I hydrated in this moment? Am I calm? Am I collected? Am I feeding my own creative needs? This can be a moment, this can be a symbol in our everyday environment to remind us to connect to the nourishment of the bird goddess. And in the V, we see the beak of the goddess, of the bird, right, as well. And we see the symbol of the M. We see the symbol of water. So let the ways, just look around in the environment. And this is just one example. And I'd love to hear other ways that you see this upside down triangle showing up in the world. There's lots of right side up triangles that we see, which I think is a symbol of the imbalance, right? But I think maybe even in our own logos or in the way that we decorate ourselves, the symbol of the necklace. I think wearing necklaces is a great way of showing that sort of downward V, bringing the energy in and down. Any way we can wear symbols, look for symbols, paint symbols, decorate our homes with symbols of this V, I think is a callback to the goddess. I wanted to point your attention to something interesting, which is that the upside down V is present in a lot of militia art symbols. So I wanted to show you here on the right, the Marine Staff Sergeant is this symbol of the upside down V. But the Air Force Sergeant, we have this downward facing V. And then we have the Army Staff Sergeant as an upward facing V. So just look around for all of these ways that the V, that this ancient symbol shows up in the world. And, the downward facing V is the container. And the upward facing V is more of the expression of that container. So, we can just play with this in our lives. And then I wanted to call your attention to a plant that I think works really, really nicely for working with the water element, the goddess archetype, and one that actually grew in the ancient old European Balkan area in Greece and around the Black and the Mediterranean Sea. And this is marshmallow. And even the name marshmallow, we get that sound of the M, we get that medicine of the marsh and of water. And so marshmallow is a plant that it grows in North Africa. It's native to North Africa. It's native to Europe. And it's also found throughout Asia. So this is one that is actually found throughout the world as a very ancient medicinal and food-based plant. It is very watery. The parts that are used are the root, the leaves and the flowers. The flowers and leaves are edible. I like to use the leaves dried as a demulcent or moistening medicine for the lungs and for the heart. The leaves are really fuzzy and fluffy, and they taste really, they have a lot of demulcent and mucilage rich compounds called polysaccharides, which soothe and cool inflamed and hardened tissues. The root does the same thing. The root is even more emollient and softening and soothing and such a good anti-inflammatory. And I wanted to show this picture to you because this is a picture of marshmallow growing near the water, which is where it grows. And if we just think about that, a doctrine of signatures, that often where a plant grows tells us about its medicine. So this marshy plant thrives in water, and it brings water into the tissues of our body that might need a little bit of extra moisture. So that's the image of it. I also wanted to show you, I brewed it today for my daughters and myself, and my husband actually drank a little bit of it, which I'm always pleased to see. But I've made an overnight infusion of nettles, lemon balm, and marshmallow root. And I did equal parts. So I did about 3/4 cup of nettle leaf, 3/4 cup of lemon balm leaf, and then 3/4 cup of marshmallow root. And I did that in a quart-sized jar. So that's like this size here. So I had about this much herb. About half the jar was filled with herb. And then I poured boiling water over it. I capped it and I let it sit overnight. So that was about 12 hours. I let it steep. And then in the morning, I poured that into this, which has a nice big strainer on it, this nice large strainer. And let me just show you. I wanted to show you how thick this medicine is. Can you see? It's viscous. This is like a very thick, mucilaginous, heavy, rich medicine. And nettles is a wonderful nutritive herb that also grows near water. It's a great spring tonic for cleansing the pathways of detoxification in the body. Lemon balm is one of my favorite mood brightening herbs. So here in Minnesota, there's like zero green yet. And it's really good for bringing on cheer and uplifting your mood. And it has this very lemony flavor to it. And then marshmallow is the medicine of the waters. It's like the mistress water medicine, this beautiful light pink flower, this really rich mucilaginous root. I keep saying that word. It's so fun to say, but it's it's really, really moistening. So I hope you could see when I poured it, what a rich, deep, nourishing tonic this can be. And I'll include in the description of this video that recipe for you again, if you want to give it a try, along with some sources where you can buy these herbs. So that is what I have for you today. I hope you found today's talk to be inspiring and, just getting you thinking about the old ways that humans, not just, women, but humans have viewed the goddess, how our ancestors used the idea of water and how we called upon water and how we used the symbols of water, these jagged, these V-shaped moving lines, these spirals, these meanders to show flow and movement of the life force, and how we used ritual and creative expression to call things into creation like rain and water. And I would say healing too, in that way, through symbolic art. And if you're not an artist, this is my call to you to get back into the practice of creation. And that can be through music. It can be through painting. It can be through drawing. It can be through making your own medicinal blends. But right now, I think it is such a good time to really resource yourself and then let that creative water flow through you to inspire others and to create dialogue around the importance of water protection, and hydration, both for the planet's sake and for our own individual sake. So with that, thank you for watching this episode. Thank you for subscribing to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye.